I truly believed I could handle it. I'd told him to go, assured him I was perfectly fine. But when the sounds began to drift from her room, low, rhythmic, utterly unmistakable, the pretense of composure shattered. I couldn't remain in bed, a prisoner of my own conflicting emotions. I rose, a silent shadow in the darkened hallway, and pushed open her door. And there they were, my boyfriend and her, entwined, a tableau of shared intimacy. Neither of them stopped. They merely glanced at me, a fleeting acknowledgement, and continued. Before we delve deeper into this, please do take a quick second to grace this video with a like and hit that subscribe button. It's a simple, yet incredibly effective way to support the channel, and it genuinely helps more than you can possibly know. I sincerely appreciate you being here. Now, let's get into it. I was gripping the edge of the mattress, every muscle in my body taut, struggling to remain still as he moved behind me with a focused, deliberate rhythm. My hands clenched the soft fabric of the sheets, a searing heat building, coiling fast within me. Each breath I drew came louder, more ragged than the last, impossible to hold back, impossible to control. His grip at my sides tightened, a possessive, grounding pressure, keeping me steady as I tipped further, inexorably out of control. A sound escaped me then, sharp, sudden, far too loud to ignore. A sound I barely recognized as my own. Then, with a fluid, almost effortless movement, he shifted me onto my back, holding my wrists gently, yet firmly above my head as he continued his relentless, intoxicating rhythm. The bed rocked, a violent cradle beneath us. I tried to breathe through it, to stay present, to anchor myself in the storm of sensation. But everything, the room, my thoughts, my very sense of self, dissolved around me. My fingers reached out blindly, desperately, for something, anything to hold on to. The wall behind us, a silent, impassive witness, tapped out a counterpoint in time with our movements. I pressed my lips together, a futile attempt to stifle the sounds welling up inside me. But another cry broke free, raw, unfiltered, utterly uninhibited, when he eventually, dropped beside me, a spent force. I lay still, my heart pounding a frantic, wild tattoo against my ribs, my skin damp, slick with perspiration, my chest rising and falling hard, fast, with the effort of it all. He let out a quiet, almost contented laugh, his lips brushing, feather light, against my shoulder. "You know," he murmured, his voice a low, husky rumble. Aunt Jen definitely heard that. My stomach sank. A leaden weight plummeting through me, I sat up quickly. The blanket tangled, twisted around my legs, my eyes locked, with a dawning, horrified realization on the dark, silent hallway outside our door. I had completely, utterly forgotten she was here. I was the one who had insisted she stay with us after her divorce, assuring her, with a perhaps misplaced confidence, that she shouldn't be alone during such a difficult time. I knew she'd been struggling, adrift in a sea of loneliness and uncertainty. She hadn't been with anyone, hadn't sought solace in another's arms since it had ended. Not because she didn't want to, no, but because she simply didn't know how to begin again, how to navigate the treacherous waters of intimacy after such a profound loss. And now she'd heard all of that. The sounds, the unmistakable movements, the uninhibited, almost shameless way I had let everything, every last vestige of control, go. It wasn't just awkward, it felt cruel, unspeakably cruel. I stayed there, frozen, paralyzed by a potent cocktail of embarrassment and guilt, my pulse still racing, a frantic, chaotic rhythm for all the wrong, unsettling reasons. How, in God's name, was I supposed to face her in the morning? The next morning, I lingered in bed far longer than I should have, scrolling aimlessly through my phone, a desperate, futile attempt to pretend that everything felt normal, ordinary. It didn't. The echoes of my own voice from the previous night, louder, more unrestrained than it ever should have been, kept replaying, an unwelcome, incessant soundtrack, in my head, and I couldn't stop wondering, obsessing over what exactly Aunt Jen had heard. Eventually, driven by a gnawing hunger and a sense of impending doom, I made my way to the kitchen. She was already there, seated at the table, sipping her coffee, an oasis of calm, almost regal composure, in the midst of my inner turmoil. Her phone was clutched in one hand, a spoon idly stirring her coffee in the other, as if nothing, absolutely nothing was different, out of the ordinary. "Morning," I managed, my voice a little too bright, a little too strained. "Morning," she replied, her tone even, unruffled. I opened the fridge and grabbed the orange juice, deliberately avoiding eye contact, pretending to be far hungrier, far more engrossed in the mundane task of pouring juice than I actually was. Then she said it. "You two had a lot of fun last night, huh?" I paused, the bottle of juice suspended in my hand. "Yeah," I mumbled. "We were a bit loud, I guess." She smiled, a small, almost imperceptible curve of her lips. "Honey, I think even the neighbors heard." I shut the fridge with a little more force than necessary, blinking hard, trying to regain some semblance of composure. "He must be pretty talented," she added, her voice still light, almost conversational. "You sounded like you were having the time of your life." I didn't respond. I couldn't. "You're lucky," she continued, her gaze unwavering. "It's been a long, long time since I've had that kind of night." She took another slow, deliberate sip of her coffee, then glanced up at me, her eyes meeting mine with a directness that was both unsettling and strangely inviting. "If he ever gets bored," she said, her voice dropping a fraction, becoming a little more intimate, "feel free to send him my way for a night." I laughed, a nervous, reflexive sound, because I assumed, I was supposed to. But she didn't laugh. She just looked at me, her gaze steady, unblinking, and suddenly, chillingly, it didn't feel like a joke at all. The day moved on, the hours ticking by with a relentless, indifferent monotony, as if nothing untoward had happened, as if the very fabric of our lives hadn't been subtly, yet irrevocably, altered. But the weight of Aunt Jen's words, those casual, yet loaded words, never truly left me. Every time I passed her closed door, I found myself wondering, obsessing, if she remembered saying them, or, more importantly, if she had actually truly meant them at all. That night, we were in bed again, just talking. No touching, no teasing, no hint of the previous night's abandon, just the soft, almost imperceptible hum of the room around us, and the comforting, familiar heat of his arm resting casually, unthinkingly against mine under the sanctuary of the blanket. He glanced over at me, his expression unreadable in the dim light. "So," he began, his voice a low murmur, "how was this morning?" I hesitated, the words catching in my throat. "Weird," I finally managed. She brought it up. She said something?" I nodded, a small, almost imperceptible movement. "She said we sounded like we were having fun." He smirked, a flash of white teeth in the darkness. "Well, we weren't." I ignored that. "Then she said, 'You must be really good.'" He raised an eyebrow, a teasing glint in his eyes. "Oh yeah?" "And then," I continued, my voice barely above a whisper, "she said, if you ever get bored, I should send you her way for a night." He blinked, genuinely surprised. Wait, what? That's what she said?" A pause. A long, charged, almost unbearable pause. Then he let out a quiet, almost contemplative laugh. "Well," he conceded, "she's not wrong." I turned to face him, my heart suddenly, inexplicably pounding in my chest. You think she's attractive?" "I mean, yeah," he admitted, his voice carefully neutral. "She's beautiful, just older." I stared up at the shadowy expanse of the ceiling. "She hasn't been with anyone since the divorce," I mused, more to myself than to him. "I think she's lonelier than she lets on." He didn't say anything, his silence a heavy, unreadable presence in the room. I exhaled slowly, a long, shaky breath. Would you ever do it?" He turned his head, his gaze meeting mine in the dimness. "You're serious?" "I don't know," I confessed, the words tumbling out in a rush. I keep thinking about it." She said it so casually, so nonchalantly, and then she just stared at me, like she really, truly meant it. He looked at me a little longer this time, his gaze intense, searching. "You'd actually be okay with that?" I hesitated, the truth a bitter, conflicting taste in my mouth. "Not completely," I admitted, my voice barely audible. "But I'm not entirely against it either." The room went quiet again, the silence thick, almost suffocating. Then he sat up, a sudden decisive movement. I looked at him, my heart lurching. What are you doing?" He glanced towards the door, his expression unreadable. "You said you're not against it." I hesitated, my mind racing. Right now?" He nodded once, a single, definitive gesture. "Unless you've changed your mind?" I didn't answer. He kissed me softly, just once, a fleeting, almost chaste caress, then stood, pulling the blanket, our shared sanctuary, off his legs. "She's probably still awake." He turned towards the door. "Wait," I said, my voice a strangled whisper. You're actually going?" He looked back at me, his silhouette framed in the doorway. "Only if you let me." I didn't say a word. I couldn't. And then he walked out. The door clicked shut, a soft, final sound, and I was alone. The room still held traces of him, lingering echoes of his presence. Warm air. A faint, almost imperceptible scent I couldn't quite name. Something that made the ensuing quiet feel heavier, more oppressive, more unbearable. I lay there, the blanket pulled tightly to my chest. Every inch of me, every nerve ending, hyper-aware, acutely, agonizingly awake. I shifted once, trying to calm the frantic, chaotic beating of my heart, but the stillness, the silence, only made everything worse, amplified my unease. I had told him it was okay. I had told him to go. But now that he was gone, something about the silence, the emptiness, felt utterly, completely unbearable. Then I heard it. A soft creak. A quiet, almost furtive shuffle. And then a breath. Drawn out, unsteady. And most definitely, unequivocally, not his. There was a pause, a beat of charged, almost unbearable silence. Then another sound, her voice. Barely audible at first, a low, breathy murmur, then longer, higher, a sound of burgeoning, undeniable pleasure. I held my breath, every muscle in my body tensed, coiled. Something was happening. I stayed frozen, paralyzed, hoping, praying it would fade, dissipate, go away. It didn't. Instead, a slow, deliberate rhythm began to take shape. Quiet shifts, light, almost imperceptible thuds against the bed frame, a soft murmur here, a sharper gasp there. No words, just sound, intimate, focused, utterly, devastatingly evocative. Then I heard him. His tone was low, steady, measured, a deep, resonant counterpoint to her rising cries. And that was all it took. My hand drifted down, more instinct than conscious decision, pressing firmly, almost desperately, over the undeniable warmth already gathering, pooling, beneath the thin fabric of my nightgown. The response was immediate. An ache, sharp, familiar, insistent, blooming fast, spreading like wildfire through my veins. I let my eyes fall shut, trying to stay with it, trying to breathe through it, trying to lose myself in the rising tide of sensation. She cried out again, sharper this time, louder, utterly, gloriously unfiltered. My fingers moved with a growing desperate urgency, tracing, caressing, over the same exquisitely sensitive spot again and again and again. But it still wasn't enough. It was never enough. My legs shifted restlessly beneath the blanket. My body moved in slow, languid, restless waves. A silent, desperate dance of frustration and burgeoning, unfulfilled desire. I couldn't seem to stop. I imagined them, a vivid, unwelcome tableau, on the other side of that thin, inadequate wall. Her, pulled tightly against him, her body pliant, yielding. His hands, sure and knowing, moving lower, ever lower. Her voice, rising, soaring, with every possessive, claiming pass. The rhythmic creak of the bed, the sharp, ragged catch in her breath, the almost effortless, shameless way she let go, surrendered so completely, so easily while I was still here, alone, chasing something, some elusive, tantalizing phantom I'd already, foolishly, given away. Each imagined movement, each overheard sound dragged me further, deeper, into the suffocating, coiling tension, but the release, that blessed, longed-for release, never came. It circled closer, teasing, tormenting, then slipped, infuriatingly, just out of reach, always just out of reach. I pressed harder, not deeper, just chasing that elusive, disappearing edge, hoping, praying I could catch it, seize it, before it vanished again, leaving me aching, wanting unfulfilled. But the tension only built, relentlessly, mercilessly. Everything inside me wound tighter, tighter, with every ragged, desperate breath. And then she cried out again, loud, broken, completely, utterly lost in it, a sound of pure, unadulterated, shattering ecstasy. That was it. That was the breaking point. I pulled the blanket off, my breath catching, hitching, in my throat as I sat up. My skin flushed, burning, my pulse pounding, a frantic, wild drum behind my ribs. My hand dropped away in sheer, unadulterated frustration. I couldn't do this alone, not anymore. Not with those sounds, those devastating, evocative sounds, not knowing, not imagining what was happening just a few feet away. I slid my legs over the side of the bed and stared, for a long, agonizing moment, at the open, beckoning doorway. For one long, suspended second, I stayed still, every muscle in my body frozen, trying to decide, to rationalize, if I was actually, truly going to move, to act on this reckless, consuming impulse. But the answer, the undeniable, irrefutable answer was already thrumming, vibrating in my body, in my blood. I stood up and I walked towards the next room. I opened the door and stepped inside without a word. Jen had leaned forward, her body poised near the edge of the bed, her dark hair falling forward, a silken curtain obscuring her face as he moved behind her, one hand resting possessively at her hip, the other tracing, with a slow, deliberate caress, the delicate, vulnerable curve of her back, in perfect, intoxicating time with their shared, undeniable rhythm. The room pulsed with sound, with energy, with a raw, primal intensity, staggered, ragged breaths, subtle, yet significant, impacts against the yielding mattress, the quiet, almost imperceptible friction of skin against skin. They both glanced towards me, a fleeting, almost startled acknowledgement. But they didn't stop. Jen turned her head, her eyes, dark, luminous, locking with mine between shallow, desperate gasps. "You coming?" she asked, her voice breathless yet undeniably, infuriatingly, amused. "Or just watching?" I pulled my shirt over my head, the movement fluid, decisive, as I crossed the room towards them. The rest of my clothes slipped away, piece by piece, discarded, forgotten, leaving a trail, a silent testament to my surrender, behind me. By the time I reached them, I was already flushed, every nerve ending alive, alert, thrumming with a potent cocktail of anticipation and a reckless, undeniable desire. I stepped in behind him, allowing my hand to run, with a slow, deliberate caress, down the entire length of his strong, muscular back, then around his waist, my palm settling with a possessive, claiming pressure, just above the enticing, vulnerable base of her spine. "Just keep going," I whispered, my voice a low, husky murmur against his ear. He didn't respond verbally, but I felt, with an almost visceral certainty, the way his movement changed, shifted, became more deliberate, more focused, more intense. Jen's breath stuttered, a sharp, ragged intake. Her arms trembled slightly as she shifted closer, pressing herself more fully against the yielding mattress, her voice catching, a strangled, inarticulate sound in the back of her throat. I pressed a lingering kiss to his shoulder, then another, slower, more deliberate, down the enticing, vulnerable slope of Jen's back. My hands skimmed up her sides, my fingers tracing gentle, tantalizing lines as I leaned in, keeping my body close, intimately close, to both of them. All three of us moved as one then, a single, pulsating entity, the rhythm, their rhythm, our rhythm, sinking deep beneath my skin, becoming a part of me. "That's it," I whispered, my lips brushing against the sensitive shell of her ear. "Stay right there," she whimpered, a soft, helpless sound. I smiled, a slow, predatory, utterly satisfied smile. Then I leaned in again. "Let's ease her back." He slowed, pulling away just enough, a subtle, almost imperceptible shift, to give her room to move, to adjust. We guided her onto her back together, our movements synchronized, almost telepathic. Her body shifted easily, pliantly, beneath our touch, her legs adjusting, parting, without a flicker of hesitation, her chest rising and falling with each deep, ragged breath. He leaned in again, his focus unwavering, while I slid in beside her, my body a warm, comforting presence, brushing the damp, errant strands of hair from her flushed face. He leaned into her again, his movements steady, smooth, relentlessly focused, and her breath caught, a sharp, ragged hitch mid-air. I kissed the side of her neck, my hand drifting, with a life of its own, along her delicate collarbone, then across the sensitive, quivering center of her being. Her body responded instantly, instinctively, moving with him, her hands gripping the sheets, her knuckles white. "You're still with us?" I murmured, my lips brushing against her cheek, my voice a low, soothing caress. "Good," she managed, turning her head towards me, her lips parted, her eyes low, heavy-lidded, glassy with a potent cocktail of pleasure and surrender. I kissed the sharp, enticing edge of her jaw, while he, beside me, picked up the pace, his movements becoming more urgent, more demanding. One of my hands remained at her waist, steadying her, anchoring her, while the rest of her moved freely, uninhibitedly between us. He eased away gently, his movements fluid, almost reluctant. We shifted her again, our hands working in concert, guiding her onto her side. I moved in behind her, my arms slipping beneath her waist, wrapping her close, cocooning her in my embrace. He adjusted his position, lifting one of her legs carefully, almost reverently, before resuming, his powerful motions sinking once more deep within hers. She gasped, a sharp, sudden intake of breath. The second their bodies reconnected, a fresh wave of sensation crashing over her. I kept one arm wrapped securely around her middle, my other hand supporting her thigh, holding her, steadying her. Her back pressed firmly into me, her breath growing shorter, more ragged, with every powerful consuming movement. Her voice rose, no longer coherent words, just broken, fragmented pieces, scattered, urgent, desperate. "She's trembling," he said, his voice low, concerned, as he watched her carefully. "Stay with her," I whispered, my voice a soothing balm against her ear. His motion deepened, not faster. No, but more certain, more possessive, and her fingers curled, tight, desperate, in the unforgiving fabric of the sheets. Her sounds grew sharper, more intense, her chest lifting, arching, off the bed in quick, uneven, convulsive pulses. I held her tighter, grounding her, anchoring her, as the tension, the exquisite, unbearable tension, wound tighter, tighter, around us all. Her whole body tightened, then stilled, every muscle seized, her legs tensed, her breath vanished, trapped, and then the sound came, open, raw, utterly, gloriously uninhibited, as she collapsed completely, utterly into me, every part of her body shaking, convulsing as the tension, that exquisitely coiled, unbearable tension, finally, blessedly, snapped. I felt her go quiet then, her body melting, yielding into the space between us, a soft, boneless weight. I held her, one arm tucked securely around her ribs, my face nestled near her ear as she struggled, desperately, to catch her breath. Watching her come apart like that, so completely, so unreservedly, held captive, cherished, between both of us, it hit harder, resonated more profoundly than I had ever expected. He slowed behind her, lifting himself with a gentle, almost reverent care. We stayed close, the three of us, tangled, entwined, in a cocoon of shared heat and profound, almost sacred silence. The undeniable, palpable weight of the moment, of what had just transpired, still thick, almost viscous in the air. I brushed the damp strands of hair from Jen's face and kissed her softly, tenderly, just above her cheek. She turned towards me slowly, her eyes low, heavy-lidded, glazed with the lingering afterglow of ecstasy, her smile barely there, a faint, almost ethereal curve of her lips. "If you two ever need a third," she whispered, her voice a low, husky, intoxicating murmur, I think I think I'm available. And that's where we left it. Most men wouldn't even consider it. He didn't just consider it, he followed through. So tell me honestly, if your girl asked you to do the same, would you? Would you go to that room? Or would you walk away? Drop your answer in the comments. I'll be reading. Before you leave, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications by clicking the bell icon so you never miss the next one. Thanks for watching. See you soon.
Thank you for listening. Please share your thoughts, like this video if you found it helpful, and subscribe for more.